go first.
Okay.
I think Women's History Month is such an interesting time to just learn about different like female experiences. Like for FEV News, we did like a women's health series for our news podcast, and I was able to interview a bunch of athletes that came back from like pregnancy and competed while pregnant. Actually interviewed one of the Olympians, Alicia Montagna, about how she ran the USA Nationals like 8 months pregnant, and just like hearing her story.
Ridiculous.
She is insane. She came back and won like the Olympic trials like the next year or something. It was she's incredible. So it's just like really cool just like getting to know these stories of women and just like getting to know like who they are, why they do what they do, and how they can break these barriers, as my shirt says. Wore this on purpose today. Like break these barriers that have been like kind of set up by society, and just like show everyone like, no, we deserve a place here, and we're here and we're doing it.
Absolutely. I agree with everything you just said. I think that as women in what has historically been a predominantly male, dominated industry, I think Women's History Month is such a great opportunity for all of us to recognize each other and recognize the amazing women that we admire, both in the sports industry and not, and just in our lives, and to recognize all of the amazing things that have been done, by women and for women. And one of my favorite things was on International Women's Day, all the different commercials that came out, especially for that day. Like my favorite was the Ford commercial. I don't know, did you guys see the Ford commercial? I have not. It was, I'll describe it to you. It was like,
paint a picture in my
I'll
mind.
paint a picture in your mind. It was a Ford truck commercial, and it was like the new Ford men's only model. And it was just like a car, and you're like, okay. And it was like, only this one comes without airbags or a rearview mirror or turn signals. And then it's like, wait. And then the last narration goes, oh, wait, it's missing all of the things created by women.
Wow.
Slay.
Yeah, it was
Wait,
really
that is
cool.
That's really interesting.
I would highly recommend watching the commercial. It's really good. But it's like things like that where I'm like, I love Women's History Month because I get to recognize the amazing women that I've grown up with and that I now surround myself with and call my best friends who inspire me all the time. But also, the people who have really paved the way for us both in sports and just regularly.
I think one of the major things with Women's History Month is that as I've gotten older and I've really kind of appreciated it for what it was, I've learned as being a woman, like growing into the industry, how welcoming other women have been to me. And I think that's really encouraged me going forward with things. Like I remember talking to Kelly Bright a couple of weeks ago on our podcast, and she would talk about how she was the only woman in the room at some of the Knicks games. And it's isolating to be the only woman in the room because regardless of if you think you know enough, if you know just as much, there's always going to be someone who doubts you because you're a woman. And it's a really tough mountain to climb. And it's just a matter of having confidence. And I think listening to so many stories of other women during Women's History Month have been so fun, has been so just engaging, and has made me more confident, I think, as a reporter, as a journalist. And just overall what I've seen, I think specifically with sports too, it's, really difficult sometimes to get advice without criticism of Emily Kaplan said in her interview today that people would criticize her just for her voice. Mm-hmm. And it's not good criticism, and you just want to improve the best way you can. And if you're not getting real criticism as a woman, it's really difficult to try and improve yourself. And so I don't know. I just find it very engaging during this Women's History Month in particular to see all of the ads and to see all the new stories breaking and to see how just much women's sports have grown, I think, this year and what we've seen from over the past couple of years with women's sports as a whole.
I agree. And even just, especially as, women in sports, like Taylor is a D1 athlete, mm-hmm. and being sports journalists, all of us, we've seen firsthand so many times that it can be really isolating, to be the only woman in the room. And you're so right. It has been so nice to be with other women, both at WFUV and also when I go to MSG or when I go places to report. The other women are so welcoming, and every woman I talk to in the industry says, we are here to build each other up. And I love that. I love that the energy used to be, 5-10 years ago, that it was a competition, it was cutthroat, it was I'm the person in the room, not you. Now it's more about creating an environment in which all are welcome and all can help each other, which I love. And I'm so thankful for the women I've met who have been so kind and so supportive and so helpful, because everyone wants to help each other. And you're right, we as women get criticized for so many things, like Emily said, that we can't help. Or I remember Rachel Toss is the in-arena host for the Colorado Avalanche, and she's incredible at her job. And there was one day where she wore like a leather, like puffy outfit. I don't know. I thought it was cute. But everyone online started criticizing her and posting pictures of her and memes of her and making jokes about her. And it was for her shirt, not even for what she was saying. And I was like, this has zero impact on her hockey knowledge or anything. And I think that was really eye-opening for me. But nevertheless, she persists, and she's a person I love and admire. And I love seeing women in sports journalism thrive, but also women in sports. My last thing before I'll stop talking for the moment, I promise. But like we were talking earlier about, there was a player at Brown this year who was the first woman to play in an NCAA Division I baseball game as a woman in the history of the division. And that was so exciting. And I think she pitched a couple innings, and I was like, that was really exciting to see, even just last week. So yay, Women's History Month. Women.
Yeah, it's definitely been incredible. You mentioned Taylor being a D1 athlete, and Taylor, I want to ask you a quick question. Over your career as being like a D1 athlete, as being a woman who plays a sport, what has, bonds with your teammates grown with you, with your coaches? Like, what has motivated you as a woman athlete, especially in the D1 sphere?
I feel like it's always kind of been like defying odds in a way. Like I remember throughout my high school career, like my team was seen as like one of the smallest in Connecticut. We were never really kind of seen as like a threat until like my senior year. One of our relays was able to sweep like state championships, regional championships. And we kind of like, we just like played the role of the underdog. And I feel like I've kind of always like held that like through my collegiate career. I've had people like straight up tell me to my face, like, oh, we don't care about women's sports. Like we'll be watching a track meet and we'll turn it off when the women are racing. I remember I was just like sitting there like dumbfounded when I heard that, and I was like, I like run in spite of that. Like I want to be that person that's like kind of like seen like I'm doing this and no one can stop me from going ahead and succeeding. And like I feel like there's always been like a lot of factors such as like injuries and just like drama and like things that like have like tried to like hold me down, but I just am like, you know what, no, I deserve my spot here. I'm trying to be an inspiration to like the younger girls on this team, maybe younger girls who are watching me from back home, and that's just what's so important. If I can like use my talent to make a difference, that's what I'm gonna do.
And Taylor, while you're my favorite D1 athlete,
I
want to know, Maddie, I want to know.
My heart is swelling.
It's all about love here today on the show.
That's
it's all
so
about
true.
love.
That's so true.
I want to know who your favorite women athlete is. It can be pro, can be D1. Who has been on your radar? This can be retired, it can be current. Who's been plaguing your mind recently as your favorite female athlete?
This is hard because I have so many. I have like favorite runners, favorite basketball players.
Right.
I can start if you guys like.
She knows.
Oh, I know. I have a couple people on my mind.
Besides me.
Besides you, Taylor.
Besides
for
Taylor.
sure.
Thanks, Maddie.
Taylor's on my list too.
Oh, guys, I'm gonna start crying. Sobbing into the mic.
Have been a huge fan of, in particular, a couple athletes, and I want to mention two in particular. I think Katie Ledecky is one of the most talented athletes in the sport of swimming, in just athletics in general. I think for what the legacy Michael Phelps had on the swimming industry and swimming sport, to see Katie Ledecky do very similar numbers, very similar records, anytime Katie Ledecky gets into the pool, she's a threat to be seen. She is, she's going to put up the fight of her life. She has broken records constantly. Almost every time she gets in the pool, she's breaking a new record. Girls everywhere are scared to swim against Katie. And now she coaches at University of Florida, and she's sharing her talents. And I think that's one of the greatest things you can do as a former pro athlete, as a current pro athlete too, giving back to the younger generation of athletes. What can you do for your community, and what can you do to grow the sport? I think that's huge. Another woman I want to shout out is a woman that's actually retiring next season from women's soccer. Allie Krieger announced her retirement from professional soccer. She will retire after the season is over. She currently plays for Gotham FC. She was a longtime U.S. women's national team player, a woman I idolized as a child, watching, growing, and playing the sport. And just everything she represented, from being herself, being confident, her game style, her form of play was absolutely incredible to watch. And she was one of those key cornerstone pieces to the early 2010s women's soccer teams that I would watch on TV almost every single year. And now with the World Cup coming up this year and her not being there anymore, and a lot of the old team just being just idols of what I used to see, it's been absolutely crazy of a career for her. And I wish her the best after. And she just was absolutely incredible for me. And those are my two kind of picks I wanted to mention today.
I love both of those. I think first I'm going to go with Brianna Decker, who is a professional female ice hockey player. She played for Team USA in the Olympics. She is a champion. She's a 3-time Olympic medalist, and she just retired. She announced her retirement about a month ago, or a month and a half ago now. And that is not even, I guess, it was the beginning of this month. And I mean, she was someone that I watched growing up as such a big hockey fan. I would watch her and I was like, wow, now that is a strong athlete, not even just a woman. Like, that is an athlete. And she's incredible. And what she has done for women's sports and for the name of the game and for being a competitor and being a person on the ice in hockey is such a, machismo male sport so typically because everyone thinks of, fighting and punching and whatever, which is what it is and part of the reason why it's so fun to watch. But she's one of the women who has established that, like, we can be physical and aggressive too. And she is a great competitor. She's an amazing team player. She's an amazing person. I'm a huge fan of Brianna Decker. I've talked about this person also on air before a lot. Simone Biles. I am a huge Simone Biles fan. I think she's one of the greatest athletes of all time. I think that what she did in the Olympics for women, for Black women, for athletes everywhere is incredible. Not only is she a person who I admire so much for speaking out so openly about mental health and being so real and so honest about something that is so like vilified and is so taboo in society, especially in athletes, because no one talks about it, and it is incredibly detrimental in athletes and collegiate and professional athletes. I admire her so much for speaking out about that. And also, she is just a beast. I mean, she is one of the greatest gymnasts to ever do it, and I love her. So I'm going Simone Biles and Brianna Decker.
I feel like I'm just gonna rattle off a ton of running names, but
go for it. Give them all the attention they need.
The one that I have adored since high school is Shalane Flanagan. She was the first American woman to win the NYC Marathon since 1977, which was huge. The pictures of her crossing that line just bring a tear to your eye every time. She is just an absolutely incredible role model, and I credit her for her cookbooks. I'm gonna get somewhere here. So she has
I believe you.
I'm going.
She has 3 cookbooks, and one of them it's Run Fast, Cook Slow. And
That's a good title.
No, it I think it really just kept my relationship with food very healthy, because with a lot of female runners, eating disorders are very prevalent in today's day and age. There's a lot of stigmas around oh, if you're lighter, you're gonna run faster. This cookbook just pushes on you. No, food is fuel. Eat those fats. Get the butter in your recipes. I was talking about my brown butter pasta earlier today,
which you have yet to make for me.
Same.
I'm gonna make it for you guys. I mean, I have some leftover butternut squash. I can make some tonight. But
sounds like we're eating dinner.
Awesome. So she's just I think these cookbooks are just so important to all these young girls, to teach them that food is good for you. Eat as much as possible because it's gonna make you faster. It's kind of destigmatizing oh, if you run you'll run faster if you're lighter, just from mostly male coaches. So I think she right there is she's just such an inspiration. And I've seen her run a couple times in person. I saw her at the NYC Marathon. I have a funny story. So she was running it, and I was I gotta see Shalane. The first year I saw her, I literally missed her running by because I was checking something on my phone for a split second, look up, I lock eyes with the back of her head. I was oh my God, that was Shalane. The second year I caught her, I saw her, she gave me a high five, and I was so excited to see her. I had no idea. I didn't realize that the former Bachelor, Matt James, was jogging with her. Me and my friends saw him. We were why does he look so familiar? And it took me 20 minutes to make the connection. Oh my God, that was Matt James. And we all just kind of ignored him for Shalane. But yeah, she's definitely probably my favorite, one of my favorite long distance runners. There's a lot of up and coming collegiate stars that I'm obsessed with. I love Caitlin Toohey. She's just broken every single indoor event this year. I watched her break the mile NCAA record. She ran in 4:24, which is absolutely insane. And she's from Rockland, so she's from around here, which is cool. I think Mo was one of my favorite runners when she was running for Texas A&M. Now she's just casually an Olympic gold medalist. And I think outside of track, I mean, Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers are 2 of my absolute favorites. I love watching them play. I was physically in distress when I found out Paige Beckers tore her ACL. So I'm really, really excited to see her back on the court. I mean, I could just go on and on about a lot of my favorite female athletes. So yeah, that's my rundown.